Hey YouTube, Awesome Writer here. This is going to be my video discussing why you should be watching King-ohger. I have done videos like this for the past couple years, I think starting with Zenkaiju when we are early on in the Sentai, where you're early on to jump on so you can catch up and watch it weekly if you want. If maybe you're on the fence or have been curious about the show, we're around 11-ish episodes so far as of this recording. As of right now, we're getting to the 6th Ranger. But I'm not going to have spoilers, really. This is just going to be discussing general points of why you might want to check out the show. It's awesome. Anyways, guys, until next time. No, overall, this is a really good show. I mean, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost! Sorry about that. From my point of view, I just want to say that, I'm getting a little bit tired of Toku in a lot of ways. I dropped off Rider and I dropped off Sentai last year. I did come back for Dawn Brothers because I wanted to finish it out because I was invested in the story. And I was checking out King-ohger because I'm like, yeah, it's a new series excitement. And I want to say that as a positive aspect is it's really kept my attention. I can't imagine right now stopping watching it. I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. I'm invested in the characters and the story, and also, I've been enjoying covering it. So I think that's a positive, just if that means anything to you, the fact that I was having Toku fatigue, and I'm enjoying the hell out of the show. But also, what I like about this show is one of the same things I like about Dawn Brothers, is that it is very different in terms of structure. If you follow Toku or Sentai, you know it can be very, 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 very formulaic, especially Sentai, as 80 to 90% of the episodes are the same formula of, fight monster grows big, fight monster again type of deal. And so the last few years, we've actually been kind of experimental with Sentai, changing things around a bit. Dawn Brothers, I think, the most significantly in regards to changing the way episodes are structured and stories are told, and King-ohger continues that. And not in the sense that they are using Dawn Brothers changes and going with that to create a new formula. They're doing things in their own way, where it feels like they're inspired by Dawn Brothers and the idea of changing the formula. They're doing their own formula, where the episodes will feel different. You'll have occasional beats that feel more like classic Sentai, but for the most part, every episode almost functions differently. There's a little bit of formulaic aspect to them introducing the main characters as they each get their own focus episode for them and their kingdoms. But for the most part, every episode flows differently. The way the stories are told differently. So if you're, a little tired of the Sentai formula, it's really quite different. And honestly, in a way, much like Dawn Brothers, reminds me a bit more of Rider, as it's a bit more serialized with the characters and the story. It gives you much more reason to tune in each week, and also each episode usually contributes to something larger, whether it be the main story or a character beat. And so far, there hasn't been a lot of useless, valueless filler episodes or anything like that. So it's a really nice, different, fresh change of pace. And that also comes down to the world. It's a really unique world that I think is interesting to check out that makes the series feel very different. Obviously, every Sentai is an alternate Earth from each other and from our world, but this is one of the most alternate Earths, as it's this place called Terra that has these 5 different kingdoms, so it's a very different culture and kingdom than your usual Japan setting. There are varying degrees of Sentai mythology. Some are very mild to just introduce the core, powers and stuff, and then you'll have bigger ones where there's a much more larger thought-out mythology like Magi Ranger. This one's kind of a step above that, I feel, just in the sense that it's the whole world and not just this kind of one dimension that plays into it. So it makes for a very different and unique setting, which adds to the unique differences of the series. You get to experience these 5 different kingdoms and their aesthetics. Some of them will be cheaper looking aesthetics, but for the most part, they have a nice, visually pleasing, distinct style where we get to see what the kingdom cities look like. Some of them are redressed familiar Sentai locations. Some are some actually pretty, beautiful vistas and stuff like that, but each one has a distinct visual style and a distinct culture, how they contribute to the story and their overall narrative, as well as the individual characters. That's what's interesting about the characters too, is they each have their own motivations, as well as the unique way they work with their kingdom and their motivations about, working with their kingdom. It makes for something different. The unique setting, as well as the unique perspectives, makes for unique series. Because that's something that's interesting about the series as well, is of course you have the villains, and there is interesting stuff going on with them, and the mystery of how they're tied to their past and their motivations, and there's some pretty awesome villain designs. But in addition to that, it's also the core dynamics and conflicts between the characters that's kind of a conflict and villain in and of itself. Obviously being compared to Game of Thrones, obviously a much lighter version, but you know what I mean. It makes for something interesting, and something else that makes the series fresh and unique, as you'll have each character having their own motivations, as well as their own motivations for their kingdom and looking after their kingdom and what their kingdom needs. I just said the word kingdom so much. And so you'll have these different alliances and dynamics and conflicts between all the characters that becomes, I think, the most interesting thing in the show. As a mythology type of person, I'm probably most interested in the stories in mythology, but definitely in terms of an episode-by-episode basis, I do find the dynamics and the conflicts between the characters to be much more interesting than fighting the monsters. Not that there isn't stuff interesting with the monsters, but that makes for a very unique series, with the perspectives and the cultures of the kingdom and how it weaves together and all that. It makes for a really really cool show that's, again, it makes it feel quite different than usual. And again, very Rider-esque, because Rider obviously is very well known for having characters, have conflicts and fighting each other within the core cast. It's definitely not to that degree. Rider is like ridiculous. They have like so many misunderstandings. Like, you stole my paperclip! Time for a 5-episode revenge arc! Also, just on a superficial level, it's a very beautiful looking show. Like I said, the unique kingdoms and stuff lend to some really unique settings and sometimes some really beautiful settings, which are really interesting to see, and it's interesting to see when we set stories in the different kingdoms. And thus far, they've done a really good job at actually having stories set in the different kingdoms or different places. You will occasionally have those, like I mentioned, sets that it's like a very recognizable Sentai set with some dressings. But you know what I mean. In general, it actually makes it feel more fresh than the usual 5 to 7 same Sentai Rider fight locations. But again, visually beautiful. They have some of the most like beautiful fight scenes I've seen in Sentai. Like, just there's some really great cinematography. We have some really cool snow scenes, some really cool like cinematic action scenes, both in terms of like the on the ground fights as well as in the Megazord. It makes things have this kind of grander, epic scale to them, which is really cool. And honestly, one of the Sentai series with some of the coolest stunts I've seen. Sentai stunts, when I first watched, actually, in my opinion, probably a hot take, felt a little bit more stiff than some of the PR stunts. As I've watched, I think they've gotten more acrobatic and dynamic and interesting, but this is definitely some of the most interesting ones. Like, they're really a lot of fun to watch, and it shows off the suits in a really cinematic way, so it can be a really epic feeling show to watch when you have this epic score. That score too. The score, I keep forgetting to mention this in the reviews, but the score is really good. Like, the background music has these really epic moments that really lend itself to the overall series, like, epic vibe, and it kind of gives this really fun and enjoyable epic feel to the series overall in terms of the scope of like the narrative of the 5 kingdoms and the world and the music and the fight scenes and the royalty of it all. It can be a really fun, epic feeling show to watch, and it's really interesting. And these first 10 episodes have felt like a mini season altogether, so I would say I'd recommend checking that out. Just watch the 10 episodes or so, maybe 5. 5's kind of a mini arc in and of itself of the team setting up in general, but 10 is almost like a little mini season. And, obviously there's going to be more to watch, but it's remarkable how well paced it is in regards to the story and characters, where I feel I have a good handle on the story, mythology, and each individual character within those 10 episodes. So I think if you check that out, give the first 5 or 10 chunks a try. If you like it, I think you'll be on board. And we've covered a lot of ground in a mostly well-paced way, and there's a lot more around the corner as we're just getting to our 6th Ranger with like 40 episodes, give or take, left to go. There's a lot more we probably don't know about. So yeah, if you are on the fence, I highly recommend giving it a chance. Like I said, the way it's structured so far, again, we're in episode 11, 12 right now as of this is uploading, but the first 5 episodes and the first 10 episodes both act as these little mini arcs, and I think they'll give you a good feel of whether you like the show or not, and also give you a good sense of completion. So like if you like to wait for batches or something like that, or you're unsure, you could probably watch the first 10 episodes and be like, this is a good stopping point, maybe I'll come back later, or I want to come back later when there's more to watch because I like to binge. But anyways, guys, that's it for this one. If you've been watching King-ohger, let me know what are the things you've been enjoying about it to maybe inspire people to check it out in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications from my videos. Awesome Writer, signing out.